rumored that I like very much, but we don't talk about films. I never ask him how did he do this or that. But what I can say is that I was at a party, a fancy Hollywood party with swimming pools and jet skis and all of that. And I saw Coppola standing alone against the wall. And I saw that nobody wanted to come near him. Everybody was just looking at him from a distance. So I went over to him and said, "Who would want to be in the army?" He got it right away. He said, "Me."
Absolutely. I will tell you a secret. One of the players I got was after the bombing at my home in downtown Ljubljana. I went for walks to relax and take my mind off things with my friend Peter. Apropos of nothing, this is what we did. We would go out and just walk along the street, and when we saw any woman that we found seductive, we would decide which one of us would ask her for a date. The one who lost had to pay for the dinner and so on. This was our primary activity, taking our mind off this traumatic event, because we both lived in downtown Ljubljana and we walked past the same places. We knew all these women who were walking alone in evening dresses going home. So sometimes I would lose and I would be totally desperate. I took it as a symbolic gesture.
Well, hello, Folkenflick. My beautiful friends, I hope you're doing well. Happy Monday. It's Monday here. Time to watch some NFL. Anyway, I'm going to try to keep this one shorter and with less pontification, but I just had to share a couple of things. I belong to a couple of groups where there are a lot of conspiracy theorists and QAnon types and far-right people or alt-right people or heterodox thinkers, because I'm interested in the way they think. I'm guessing that they're not even close to a majority of how people think about the world, but then, I don't know how people in Liberia think about the world, much less people in Vladivostok or, some part of Uzbekistan. You know what I mean? I'm a weird guy, Western educated, industrial, rich, democratic, country type thing. And, I have a certain education, a certain privilege. I cop to all of that, obviously, and a certain amount of traveling all my life, which has messed up my brain. And of course, I've been brainwashed by the liberal establishment for decades. So, of course, I'm crippled there, disabled. I cop to all that, but they're interesting. And sometimes their views are quite poignant, quite spot on, interesting. The phraseology, the writing can be pretty stimulating and fun to read. One thing I've got to say though, and I've known this for a long time, you can read books by Michael Shermer or people like that who talk about skepticism or conspiracy theories, why people believe weird things and so on. But because of cognitive biases, various ones, and cognitive dissonance, if a person is very emotionally attached and intellectually attached to a certain idea, whether it's climate change is not a thing, it's just some, Marxists trying to mess with you and keep you away from God and plant demons in your head, or I'm not straw manning there. People actually think like that. Or you think that, climate change is a big deal and we're probably all going to be dead by 2030. Schmachtenberger talks about these dichotomies in his thinking. But if you believe in QAnon to some degree, or you're a member of that community, it's going to be very salient for you. And if you believe something about vaccines or various kind of flus or viruses. I hate to mention it because I don't want to get my video taken down. But, you know, you have these nurses in the UK and these bloggers and these heterodox doctors and so on with their opinions. And you have a lot of weird publications like Off Guardian and Zero Hedge and whatever that promote these ideas. And then you can go to, and of course, it's not a thing, right? They say it's not a thing, like climate change isn't a thing. And then you go to the establishment, you know, the scientific consensus, which is global and involves tens of thousands of people who are professionals and have spent decades at the bench or doing their work or practicing clinicians or whatever. And they have a different opinion, the opinion that I guess most people share. And of course, if you take the opposite side of them, they're going to say, you're the pseudoscientific one, you're the cherry picker, you're the cognitive bias causation, correlation, that's your problem, not mine. Your science is a religion. It's not the real science. My science is the real science. It comes from bloggers and media personalities and vitamin salesmen. So I'm always reading and posting, you know, stuff from science-based medicine and all kinds of other sources that I send them links, but they never read it because they're not interested in the mainstream side, because that's all just smoke and mirrors. It's a con job. You've been brainwashed. You're not smart enough to see who really brought down the Twin Towers and who directed the film Walking on the Moon and who really shot JFK. Anyway, you know the drill. But that's okay. I mean, they're going to believe that. The one thing you have to understand is there's no way you're going to change their mind. They're not fence sitters. They're true believers. And you just can't send them a billion science articles and a billion sources and expect them to take even one of them seriously. They're not going to. So that's not my goal. My goal isn't to change somebody's mind. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to understand people and develop, understanding of where they're coming from, because I know they're decent people and they're smart people and they're rational people, intelligent people, likable people, and you can't change them. So, you know, if the majority of people become, you know, let's just not worry about climate change or climate crisis at all, then we're not going to worry about it, and circumstances will dictate what happens to us in the future. So why worry about it, right? Get on with life. Club Med vacation, enjoy yourself, which is great. I mean, moralizing and all that. But some people do have a point that it's important to freak out a bit and to point out the dangers and the risks, and to try to look at things rationally and scientifically and all that. But if you're not into that, if you're into the pure ideology, nothing's going to sway you. But I still find these people interesting. So 2 articles. One is by the in the Imaginative Conservative by John Horvat, and it's a Greta thing. You know, Greta's just a commie neo-Marxist witch kind of thing. Anyway, I'll walk you through that real quick. And then the other one is a B.J. Campbell piece where he's saying that Russia should send the United States a fruit basket. And I love that title. It's clickable and very interesting and apropos. It makes a lot of sense in the context of his thinking. Now, BJ, I don't know where he's coming from, but he's an entertaining writer and he has a really nice way of turning a phrase. And I really don't care about his political ideology. He's a pro-gun guy and he has a lot of rational arguments backed up with data about why the whole gun thing in the States, the whole culture war around guns is wrong. So you may or may not be interested in his opinion on that, but you know, it's better than most pro-gun type people. Anyway, so he's a conscientious objector to the culture war. I'm talking about B.J. Campbell. He thinks a lot. He says, I think a lot. This is from his Medium. He migrated to Substack. It's culture war analysis, media criticism, and occasional esoteria. Also gun math, okay? And you have to understand, you can find data for any argument you want to make. Is it a complete, total, correct argument? People debate about these things. He writes for Quillette, which is a kind of a conservative leaning outlet, a little bit leaning right. And on that, he says his bio, he's a professional civil engineer in Atlanta and a single father. And he writes about gun policy and cultural analysis. This is coffee, not morning beer. It's good. I put cinnamon in it. Yeah, it's nice. So, yeah, we're going to get into those. So I'll go to voiceover and show you these articles. I want to keep it short because the last one was 46 minutes or something. But I think these are really interesting, and I want to make a couple points about these articles. Okay, so thanks a lot for watching. Please stay tuned. Stay with me for a few more minutes, okay? See you in a second. Yeah, so the beginning part is a fun little thing I discovered. Zizek and Herzog. I love those guys. They're so interesting. They probably annoy the hell out of most people, but I find them fantastic. Werner Herzog is a great filmmaker, in my opinion. In my humble opinion. And Zizek is an interesting guy. Of course, you know, you have to have your cross and your wooden stake and all that stuff, your holy water, when you listen to him, because, you know, he's a lefty. And that's pretty damn scary, I know, for a lot of people out there. In the America world in particular, in the Anglo sphere. So anyhow, the first thing we're going to talk about is, yeah, that's what the noise was at the beginning of the piece, the video. Very interesting project. I'll tell you about that later. Another video. So the first thing we're going to do is the Red Scare kind of thing, the commie neo-Marxist witch, the evil Greta Thunberg, I don't know how to say it. So anyway, this guy is precious. I want to say from the outset that I read The Imaginative Conservative. Some of the articles are interesting. It's biased as hell, but I want to know how conservatives think. You know, what are they trying to conserve? What are they going to fight and die for? Why are they angry? You know, why do they hate lefties? Why do they hate progressives? You know, what's at stake? And this is leading into this thing I want to comment on, the suicide of the West type stuff. But I don't want to get off topic. So Greta turns left and read The Imaginative Conservative. And this is by John Horvat. And he's a clever guy, and he has a great little joke at the end of this piece that'll make you fart and laugh and slobber all over yourself. So in the beginning, he's saying, as she grows up in her bitterness, Greta Thunberg, the poster child of the eco movement, comes out of the red closet. She's in the closet. She's under your bed. She's everywhere. She's ready to take down everything you hold sacred and dear. That was me talking. Her embracing of the left proves that climate activism taken to its final consequences will always lead to anti-Western communist ideology. So there you have it. Always lead. So anybody who's into this climate thing, this is what I'm talking about. You know, if you're on that side, anything having to do with the climate thing, is just playing against your ideological beliefs, so it's just false. And you're probably some kind of really dangerous, either demon-possessed Satanist or commie, communist, red, leftist, libtard. And so they're not going to care about climate crisis. It's just like, if there's a flood, it's no weather, which is fine. That's what they believe in. That's fine. Circumstances will dictate. So moving on. However, what surprises many is that this strange darling of the Greens would align herself so clearly with Marxist ideas. Part of her effectiveness was her ability to display a naive, childlike attitude that psychologically disarmed those who heard her. She seemed immune to leftist propaganda and incapable of a hidden agenda. So isn't that sweet? She was a childlike little thing, and she was so disarming, because don't you love children? But then underneath it all, man, she's been programmed and brainwashed by leftist lunatics who want to take over your world and blow up your church. Coming out red, he goes on and on. It's a short article. No neo-Marxist attack is complete without a tirade against the opposition, which she instantly labels as fascist movements offering easy, false solutions and scapegoats to complex problems. All these attacks are read straight from the Marxist script. So that's the thing. It's a mirror image, right? If you disagree with me ideologically, then I'm the one scapegoating. I'm the one reading from a script. I'm the one who's irrational. I'm the one who's brainwashed. I'm the one who doesn't understand how the world works. And you do. And that's not going to change. So you have to find common ground by talking about other things that humanize each other so that you can perhaps learn something from each other, even though you're diametrically opposed. So she wrote a book, Greta, with a bunch of other people. It's called The Climate Book, The Facts and Solutions. I would read it, but you know me. The hullabaloo is all about a work that Greta did not write entirely. Following sound marketing practice, her name is attached to the work. She merely stitches together a compilation of essays from 100 leftist, quote-unquote, experts, which make up most of the title's content. So there you go. If you're on the left, you can't call yourself an expert. That has to be in scare quotes, because we're all brainwashed. I don't consider myself a leftist, but anyway. If I have any of those thoughts, it's because I've been programmed. Finding merit. The new book does have some merits. It shows that while the leftist experts manifest themselves differently, they all come together to promote a single cause. The book also documents Greta's transformation from a climate change campaigner to an anti-capitalistic, anti-everything leftist militant. So now I guess she has guns and bazookas, and she's going to bomb places and so on. And she's anti-everything. So she doesn't want you to have your cheeseburger. She doesn't want you to have your super bike. She doesn't want you to, enjoy life. She wants to make you, rent everything and be happy, own nothing and be happy. So she's part of that Davos conspiracy. It's an old one, very old. And just wants to ruin your life, the life that we've led all these years in our generations, that nobody led for hundreds of thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution. But never mind. This is the new normal. This is what God intended. So the launching makes it clear that Greta is a creature of the media, supported by the liberal establishment that she hates. The carbon-heavy production of the work shows how activists break their own rules when it comes to advancing their revolution. And here's the joke, so get ready to fart and slobber and snort. The shame, however, is that it is a waste of good trees. Now that's pretty funny. That's like mic drop moment there. So anyway, the idea is that, all of us are hypocrites because we drive cars and we use oil and gas and we, live in this world which is dependent on oil and gas to a great degree. So talking about anything other than the world that we have today is hypocrisy, because it's never going to change, right? I mean, it can't, and it shouldn't. So we're hypocrites. If you had to take an airplane to a launching of a book, if you didn't walk there, you're a hypocrite. So why listen to you? Why listen to climate science? You're hypocrites. Lefty, commie, reds, hypocrites. You drove to this venue, didn't you? Didn't you? Do you use an electric car? No? Why? And what charged your electric car? Was it coal? Was it gas, natural gas? Hypocrite. So the idea is, we can't do anything to fend off a crisis because, we just can't. Because there isn't a crisis, and if you say there is, you're a hypocrite. So there you have it. And the funny kicker on this thing is at the bottom, they have a little blurb for the imaginative conservative. So I don't know, did I do justice to the tone of this article, or was I straw manning? Was I being mean? Was it a nice tone, do you think? So the imaginative conservative applies the principle of appreciation to the discussion of culture and politics. We approach dialogue with magnanimity rather than with mere civility. Will you help us remain a refreshing oasis in the increasingly contentious arena of modern discourse? So if you're a imaginative conservative, you're magnanimous and refreshing. You're not contentious and all that kind of stuff. Of course, if you're anything in the left, you're just a snarky, cynical jerk who wants to tear down everything that made Western civilization the greatest thing that ever happened to the whole universe. God's will. So there you have it. There's no twain that will meet. There's a gulf there, a gap, and it's ideological and it's built in. It's kind of been hardwired in all of us for many, many years, and it's very few people can cross over to another side. We more or less remain the way we are from the beginning. And so if we're going to have any hope of collaborating across these divides, we're going to have to work really, really hard at making connections with one another. And we're going to have a smile on our face and a nice sense of humor and a sense of love towards people. But it's easier to, scapegoat people to dehumanize the other side. And that's not good. So this 13 minutes in, oh my God, I'm sorry. So we'll move on to the next piece. So I already introduced BJ. He's the hand-waving freakoutery guy. I love the name of this, his Substack, hand-waving freakoutery. I wish I'd made that up. I used to make up names like that all the time. It was fun. So his piece is Putin should send us a fruit basket. He means America. And the reason is quite clever. It's at the end of the article. So anyway, beginning, I'm sorry, I got to read some of this to you because I find the language stimulating and titillating and interesting, thought-provoking. I like the way he turns a phrase in this one, whether you agree with him or not. So there are two kinds of wars, both of which are fundamentally immoral. One kind is the crusade, where one culture decides to subjugate and convert another culture entirely, killing their men, fucking their women, burning their books, and replacing their genes and memes to end that culture, mimetic and genetic influence on future Earth. So genocide, basically. The other kind of war is the power grab, when elite, powerful, rich lizard people decide to leverage their power over the masses they influence to kill and destroy the masses of some other region in order to take their resources of their lizard people and become more powerful lizard people. The only way to understand war is to isolate the morality portion of your brain, strip it out, put it on a shelf, and view the thing like a lizard person would. I love that. Because we're also self-righteous. We sit at home in our chairs and we cheer on the war. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of people are killed and injured. It's a complete tragedy on so many levels, but we cheer it on. And we think we're tough little soldiers, you know, because the other side's pure evil and our side is purely good. And it's just so childish, in my opinion, to think that way. And it doesn't help anybody. It's nasty. So the next little piece, he goes on, lizard people battleground. They weren't doing this for moral reasons. They were doing it for control over the pipelines. Because lizard people love pipelines. Ukraine has some great pipelines, and those pipelines move Russian energy. So, yeah, smart people I know say, it's not about oil, man. It's about Putin. He's an evil bastard. Kill them all. I think that's shallow and childish, but anyway, there you go. So yeah, moral reasons, fleedom, and democracy. I mean, meanwhile, we're telling the other, we're characterizing the opposition in the states as anti-democratic. One side calls the other side fascists or dictators, you know, and both can't be right. There has to be reality. When you argue with reality, you lose. There was a quote in one of Steven Pinker's books where he was talking about bending towards rationality. Yeah, some religious demagogues and philosophers think that to be anti-religious is to be, irrational, but they hate rationality, rationalism, rationalists, people talk about that. Anyway, depending on the context, are you talking about rationalism or skepticism in a purely philosophical context of a certain kind in a certain time and place, or the general dictionary view of it or whatever? You have to be careful about these things. But people twist them around. So moving on, sorry, there's a lot here, but you should read it anyway, but I have to go into it because to me, it's quite interesting and fun. So I don't know if you noticed, but the mysterious destruction of Nord Stream funnels almost all the remaining Russia supply through Ukraine. The whole thing is about lizard people revenue streams. Well, it's not going to work out for either side, that's for sure. But yeah, I think it is. I remember back in the day I was saying, no, this war in Iraq isn't about oil, blah, blah, blah. I was stupid. Anyway, Kool-Aid and Cossacks. I love that. Kool-Aid and Cossacks. Excellent. They took it with helicopter. Okay, he's talking about the big, huge airport that's perfect for waging war. It's a good asset to have near Kyiv. They took it with helicopter-based airborne special ops forces, lost it, took it again, lost it again. Antonov is a heavy lift airport capable of landing the largest transports in the Russian army. The sorts of things you can fly tanks in. Had they been able to maintain control of it, they could have airlifted some number of armored divisions straight to the gates of Kyiv and changed the face of the war. Shock and awe. Remember my last video? The shock and awe. There's this idea that's been debunked a billion times, but we can't get over it, especially the Americans, that the air war, bombing populations will make them fold. Well, eventually you nuke Japan twice and they fold. But generally, bombing, the Blitz didn't make the UK fold. And, Dresden and all that in Germany didn't make the Germans surrender. The Russians had to come in and occupy the bloody country before they gave in. And a lot of people died during that action, that activity. Of course, Americans went in, the Allies went in too, but without the hordes of Russians, you could forget about it. World War II, we'd all be speaking German. So the idea that bombing a place is a sure win, you just bomb them a lot and then they give up, they embrace you like a hero, and then you go home having gotten everything you wanted. So they learned this trick from us. The problem is twofold. It's a shit trick, number one. Number two, the Cossacks. I love the way he brings these two things together. We're supposed to win in Afghanistan with shock and awe. Strategically speaking, shock and awe is supposed to be a force multiplier, where you do so much damage and have such a tremendous show of force in such a short amount of time that you demoralize your opponent, and a bunch of people you were needing to kill fell into the no longer necessary to kill bucket, and the force necessary to win the conflict is reduced. It's a way to kink the ROI calculation on necessary strategic force in the room where dudes in pressed green shirts are pushing little risk pieces around on a map. You got to read that again. I didn't read it well, but I find that very amusing. I love that. Kink the ROI calculation on necessary strategic force in the room where dudes in pressed green shirts are pushing little risk pieces around on a map. Think about those military dudes. So, once you take the country, you don't have to spend resources occupying it like in Risk. So that's just not true. Two, the people in that country are in fact going to be shocked or awed. They're not. So Putin drank his own Kool-Aid. His media ecosystem has been parroting the idea that Ukraine is full of Nazis ever since he lost the corruption influence game in 2014. And he started to believe that. That made him think the very same dumb shit that the George W. Bush Project for the American Century administration was saying here in the USA. That the Iraqis would welcome us as heroes as a way to completely ignore bullet point one. Once you take the country, you don't have to spend resources occupying it, like in Risk. Point one. There's no need to occupy the country because it'll be happy being occupied. This is the same sort of thing that dumb lizard people think. So there may be no more militaristic, more hard-ass, more take-no-shit genetic and cultural tradition in the entire world than the Cossacks. I think of the guy Dan Carlin, Hardcore History. Listen to that stuff. You'll get it. The Scythians. These people take militaristic ethno-nationalism to a level not seen anywhere else in modern times, and are only perhaps rivaled in history by the Mongols, which stand to reason because they might be partially descended from Genghis Khan's genetic line. So yeah, I've been over there, in that part of the world. You see a lot of Mongolian people. Afghanistan, $2.3 trillion is a lot of money. That's 27 years worth of Russia's entire military budget. I think he means yearly military budget. Yeah, definitely. Pretending that Russia won Ukraine as easily as the US won Afghanistan, and pretending their occupation burn rate was the same as ours, and pretending Russia had no other military obligations at all across their entire influence region, didn't need to defend their own borders, and didn't need to do local military things which typically absorb the majority of a military budget, Putin would be 97 years old by the time the Ukraine occupation ended, and they still would have lost. But those are bad assumptions. 1. Russia couldn't possibly spend 100% of its budget occupying Ukraine. 2. Russia doesn't have the secret DevGru Black Ops helicopter stuff with flying death robot top cover thing we have. 3. While I admire the Afghans' persistence, there's still nothing compared to a bunch of angry Cossacks. Putin would be 110 years old or older by the time his Occupy Ukraine adventure was complete, which brings up an interesting thought experiment. Here's where we get to the fruit basket. If some other technologically superior force, say for instance UFOs or benefactors from the lost city of Atlantis, were to have armed the Afghans with sci-fi 40K bolt casters and rail guns and planetary virus bombs to repel our invasion, it would have saved us money. On net, losing that war earlier would have been a more beneficial outcome to the United States than what actually transpired. We would owe those UFO or Atlantean arms dealers a fruit basket for saving us from our own folly, and Putin owes us a similar favor for arming Ukraine with HIMARS rockets to save him from the dumb mistake we finally just escaped. You look at these other generals who are like thinking that, this is going to go on. And I sometimes think it is too. It's going to go on and on and on because our leaders are stupid. We think they're really smart, but they're dumb. So even if you can see both sides, it still is just a ridiculous adventure. Ridiculous because it's going to go too long. It's going to cost too much. And it's not going to get anyone in the world anything. Whether you believe in climate change or not. Oil and gas, drill, baby, drill. How much war are we going to have over Arctic oil resources, I wonder? Okay, back to the thing. The problem is this. The lizard people make war decisions with their morality programming isolated from their brains, as I asked you to do at the beginning of the article. But they convince others to promulgate their wars by activating those morality circuits in the plebeians and convincing them that their side of the war is the moral side. And that's a commitment you can't walk away from, you can't back out on as a lizard person. Because if you admit to the plebeian masses that you've been marching them off to die for your own lizard person power grab, then they might rise up and kill you. So once you've made that move, you're stuck with your decision. and have to double down on the nationalistic morality platitudes to save yourself from your own plebs. So that to me is pretty profound. But William T. thinks that the plebs are too lazy, too well entertained to rise up. And they don't have power. Powerless, hopeless. It's just a terrible situation. And we're being squeezed all the time, the plebs. They're getting less and less power every day. So maybe the lizard people can just get away from grabbing all the power and controlling all the assets. And at the end of the day, controlling everything in a really stupid way that doesn't help them or anybody else on the planet. I mean, in the end, is it going to be oligarchs and their private armies duking it out, like in the 16th century, Maybe they'll all fight each other with swords and shields. That would be fun to watch. But more likely, we're going to burn out the global economy, wreck the rules-based order completely, maybe have a nuclear war. We're going to heat the fuck out of this atmosphere, our planet. And once you stop, you have the masking effect that speeds up the warming. You have all these different things going on because the climate is a complex system, even if you believe Jesus says it's not. And the energy that's there right now and the carbon in the atmosphere is enough to heat this place for a long time to come, generations. So you can't just put the brakes on it. So all this stuff by 2050, we're going to be carbon neutral. That's nonsense. It's greenwashing. It is a con job. And people still don't understand it. And nobody's going to make any sacrifices. You want your flat screen LED or whatever new technology thing. You want that. And you'll borrow money and you'll slave to get it. And, attention, the attention economy and all that kind of stuff. And being captive by your audience and the metaverse and everything. It's got a momentum all its own, like egregores that BJ talks about. And that momentum is kind of built in to the system, to the way we think, whether you're an imaginative conservative or a commie red lunatic lefty witch. And so we're going to continue doing what we do, advocating for what we advocate. And you can dream about things getting more rational, more scientific, better critical thinking, better sense making, more coherence, new cultures, game B. I don't see it coming, folks. So at some point we have to talk about how we're going to make things nice for ourselves and our friends, our communities, while we move into a very different world. Things do change. I mean, things have changed. Elon Musk changed, don't you think? He's a little bit different than he was at the beginning of his career. Well, there you go, 34 minutes, so I screwed myself. It's too long. Maybe I should limit to one article. But I think they dovetail in some weird way. That's how my brain works. So thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe and tell your friends. Go to Globe Hackers' Facebook page to look at all the crazy news, snarky comments. William T. out.